Hi! Okay, so my name is Meg Johnson and I'm going to show you how I paint a picture, kind of. Well, I'm not actually like a painter. I'm not actually going to teach anybody how to paint. That's not what I do. But I am going to just paint a picture because that is something that I love to do just by myself when I'm here in this empty room. There's no kids, well, there are dogs, but there's just not a lot going on in my house. So I'm just gonna paint this picture while I tell you a little bit about what's going on. So, I said my name's Meg Johnson, but actually I don't think I've ever told you guys, my name's not really Meg. Secrets being revealed. My name is Margaret, so they named me Margaret, that's my name, and it's Margaret Allison, and that's who I am, and that's my name. Margaret actually means a pearl, and a pearl is created from an irritant. So, you know, the oyster gets a little irritant inside its shell, and it works with it, 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 until it becomes actually a really beautiful, you know, precious gem. And so that's what my name means. And I think names are really important, and I think my name's really important to me because I have had an irritant. Obviously, here I am in a wheelchair. I haven't always been in a wheelchair. It's been 20 years. Can you believe it? It's been 20 years that I've been in a wheelchair. So I celebrate 20 years just during, you know, right now in this March. I was paralyzed March 6, 2004, and so we call it Cliff Day. My family eats Cliff Bars and we jump off stuff. I'll tell you in a minute how I got paralyzed. You know, I'm sure, I don't know if you know. You might not know, that's all right. I'll tell you. But painting relaxes me, so I'm having a very relaxed time talking to you guys as I am painting. But I've got a lot of learning that I've done in the 20 years that I have been in a wheelchair, and it's been a ride. It's been a ride. I mean, literally, and also emotionally and socially, and you know, physically, it's been a ride. And I have been really learning a lot these past 20 years. My old self was nothing like this self. Well, I mean, yeah, emotionally, you know, it was pretty much a lot like this self. But I was a dancer. I was a ballroom dancer specifically. I was always dancing. I did a lot of dancing. And I can't like dance right now. That's not something I do. And so I have discovered that painting actually fills the void that dancing left when I got paralyzed so long ago. So that's one of the reasons that I paint, and it's been really helpful, and it's been really nice, like, to paint, and I really enjoy doing it. I'm not the greatest at it, so I hope nobody's watching this video as like, oh, I wonder how I should paint a picture. No, you should not be doing that. You can see how I paint a picture. Sometimes people see my artwork and they're like, oh, did your daughter do these? I'm like, no. So anyway, but like before I was dancing all the time. Like I was on the ballroom team at university, and I would go with my friends. We'd go down to different places in, you know, I live in Utah, so down there in Salt Lake, and we would always be, you know, dancing into the night, like into the morning. And my friends would come to me. I remember this was a common experience, you know, where they would come to me and they're like, Meg, we're gonna go home. And I'm like, why? Why are you gonna go home? And they're like, well, it's, you know, 4 a.m., we're tired, we're gonna go home. And I'm like, oh, you know, I guess we should, you know, call it a night, which was harder for me. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to ever go home from dancing. But when I got paralyzed, that wasn't really something I could do. And so I started to paint, and it fills that void, and that's pretty nice. I chose 20 different colors that I'm going to paint with because it is the 20th anniversary of me being paralyzed, and I wanted to paint a picture, kind of commemorate that. What happened so many years ago, 20 years ago, was I went down to southern Utah, and I'd never been there before. I had never been to southern Utah, and I was spellbound with how beautiful everything looked. It's so red down there in southern Utah. I didn't grow up in Utah. This was the first time I had ever been to southern Utah, and it was just beautiful to me. So beautiful, all the red rocks, the red sand, the red dirt, just everywhere. And I was jumping. Well, I went down with my boyfriend at the time, and he and I went down for his little sister's baptism, and the morning of the baptism, we woke up and we went down to this box turtle preserve, this beautiful red rock area where there's all these boulders all in a row, and all of these, rock climbers that were climbing the rocks, and just everywhere, just so beautiful everywhere. The red rocks, the red sand, the red dirt, just everywhere. And he and I split for a bit. He stopped and watched some rock climbers that were, doing their thing. And then I went on because there are all these boulders, and I was jumping on all of these boulders, jumping from one boulder to another boulder to another boulder until I saw this one last boulder, and I jumped for it. And on accident, I just clean jumped off a cliff. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Obviously, it was just the beautiful red rock terrain of that southern Utah area. All the red rocks and the red sand and the red dirt and everything made everything sort of blend together. And so it looked to me to be like a bunch of boulders all in a row. Actually wasn't. It was a bunch of like mountaintops, separated by canyons and cliffs and ravines and ledges, and it was freaky. And so I jumped off this cliff, and I knew immediately what I had done. People ask me, what was it like? Was it scary? Did you remember, falling all the way down? And I remember jumping off the cliff, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fall. And I even said that out loud. I was like, I'm gonna fall. And I did. I fell about 45 feet to the ground, where they think I landed on hands and knees or bounced off the rocks on the way down. They're not exactly sure. But I broke both of my arms and both of my legs, my collarbone, and then 4 bones in my neck. And they life-flighted me up to LDS Hospital in Salt Lake City, where I was pronounced a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the chest down without the use of my hands. So my hands, I'll show them to you. So this hand over here can kind of grab a little bit like this, and this hand over here doesn't. And the reason, they're both paralyzed, but I had surgery that took 2 of the 3 tendons from the back of this wrist. You have 3 tendons that do this to your wrist, that do that right there. And the doctors took 2 of them and wrapped one of them up to my 4 fingers and the other one to my thumb. So every time I tip my wrist back, my hand closes and my thumb pinches like that. So it's like an amplified form of tenodesis. So tenodesis is like this form where you can pick something up by just, balancing it in your hand and moving your wrist. And this one is just a little bit stronger, so I can hold on to stuff pretty tight with my left hand. But that's what I have. My hands are paralyzed. My legs are obviously paralyzed. My back muscles are paralyzed. My tummy muscles are paralyzed. I've got my biceps though, and my triceps, and my wrist extension, which is kind of a big deal in the quadriplegic world. But that's the extent of what I've got as far as physical ability goes. And so when I came home from the hospital, it was incredibly hard. It was incredibly hard to come home like this, because I was used to dancing, and I was used to, having a good time with my friends and going out and dancing and more dancing and more dancing. That was pretty much, I would have said that if you were to ask me to define myself before I was paralyzed, I would have probably said well, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer. That's what I do. I'm a dancer. I love to dance. I love to dance. I love to dance. Like that was it. I also love to do other things like, hike and walk and normal things like that. But this is what happened, and I came home from the hospital without the use of my legs or my back or my stomach or my hands, and it was quite the adjustment, and I was incredibly sad. And I remember this one day I was so sad. I started to think about everything that I don't have, how I don't have my hand function, how I don't have my stomach muscles, and my belly like always pokes out. They call it the quad belly. Like it pokes out on all the quadriplegics in the whole wide world. Like if you break your neck, you're quadriplegic and your tummy muscles aren't going to work, and so your belly pokes out, and they call it the quad belly. And they call your hands the quad claw because that's what they want. They want your hands to be the quad claw so that it works and so that you can have that tenodesis to pick stuff up. And it's really, really like degrading a little bit. There's a whole lot of humility, people helping you with the most intimate of things, and it is not fun, and it's not preferred, and it's not anything that I ever thought would ever happen to me. I mean, ever. I was so far removed from the wheelchair community that I didn't even know somebody who knew somebody who was in a wheelchair. And then I came home from the hospital like this, and here I was, me in a wheelchair. And I was looking at myself in a full-length mirror, my ragdoll body with an attitude. That's what my mom called me. Well, I mean, in the nicest way. But, really, it was ragdoll body, and I started to cry. And I thought, I am never going to be able to teach my kids how to dance like I always thought I would. And then I started to cry even harder because I thought, well, maybe I'm not even going to have kids. Maybe I can't. And then I started to cry even harder because I thought, well, maybe the reason I'll never have kids is because I'll never find a husband who would want to marry me. And I was so sad. I was so sad. And at that time, the boyfriend that I had broken up with me, and so I was alone. I was alone, and I was sad, and I did not want to be in a wheelchair. I did not want this to be happening to me. I did not want anything about my current life. And I was crying, and then I started to pray. And I think that believing in God sometimes can backfire because we know who to blame. You pray to God, you ask him for stuff, and he doesn't give it to you sometimes. And sometimes he does, and you're like, yay, God. And then sometimes he doesn't, and you're like, hey, God. There's the two extremes. And it was a hey, God moment. Like, hey, God, I've read the Bible. Like, I know you can fix this. I know you can heal me, and he just didn't. And he wasn't going to, it didn't seem. And I was so mad at him, and I was just so mad. I said, why have you done this to me? Why have you done this to me? I didn't do anything to you. I was just being normal, average, regular. Why have you taken away so much from me? And I probably didn't deserve it, but in his mercy, which by definition means undeserved, I heard an answer, and I heard God speak to me and say, don't covet, because I have given you more. I have been in a wheelchair for 20 years, and for those 20 years, I have been trying to discover, trying to learn, what more do I have because I'm in a wheelchair? What more could God have possibly given me as I'm in this wheelchair? There are a few things that I have learned so far. I have more of a perspective. I have more opportunities to prove myself. I have more opportunities to see the good side and the bad side of people. I have more empathy. I have more love. I have more patience. That's something I didn't have. I have more humility, though not much as I'd like. Sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, what more can God do that will give me more humility? But there are more things that I have that I would not have had, nor had the opportunity to seek, nor had the opportunity to even desire, because I wouldn't have even known that they existed had I walked for these past 20 years. For sure, I would love to change this and I would love to walk, but for sure, I would not trade these past 20 years of being in a wheelchair, of crying behind closed doors, of struggling up ramps, of figuring out and suffering through harsh social experiences. I would not trade these 20 years of all of the hard things that I've experienced for 20 blissful years of walking, because of all that I've learned, because of all that I know, because of the people that I've met, the things that I've seen. You know, it's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. I, for sure, did not have this perspective 20 years ago. Though 20 years ago, when this awful began, I sure would have liked to have seen a glimpse of my life right now, just to know that the other side of awful was going to be worth it, just to know that there was going to be light at the end of what seemed to be starting as a very, very bleak and a very, very dark and a very, very unhappy tunnel. I would have liked to have seen my life right now, just to show me, just for a glimpse, that the other side of awful was going to be beautiful, and it was going to be bright, and it was going to be happy, and I, above all, was going to be happy. My life right now is full of happiness. I'm not going to say that my life is full of no trials. Like, I won't say that. Like, I still have trials, and I still have struggles, and I still have days when I cry, and I still have days when I wish I could walk, and you know, I say days, but it's moments. It's not just a good day or a bad day. It's moments within the day that fluctuate. And sometimes I wish that I, was faster. I wish that I was better. I wish that I was taller. I wish that I, had the use of my legs. I wish that I could dance. Dancing is something that I can't hardly even talk about without feeling a deep pain of grief in my heart, because I miss it so much. I wish that was part of, my life right now, but I will wait. I will wait for the cure, because I know that's on the way. Not only do I believe in God, but I believe in the medical community. I mean, they're gonna figure this out. I mean, you can laser your eyeballs and see, like, it's like an outpatient surgery. So I have every belief that they are going to figure out a cure for spinal cord injuries, and I'm gonna walk again, and I'm gonna dance, and I'm gonna stand up, and I'm gonna look good in jeans, and I won't have a quad belly, and my hands will straighten out, and I'll be able to, wave hi to people while I stroll along the street, and that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be a great day. However, that great day is going to be after I have had many 20 years worth-ish of great days in a wheelchair. So just because I believe that I'm going to be cured doesn't mean I can't enjoy my life, where I am, doing what I'm doing, seeing what I'm seeing, knowing what I'm knowing, having the perspective that I've earned over these past 20 years. It's been a ride. It's been awesome. And my life now is full of beauty. It's full of beauty. I am married. I have a beautiful husband who is strong and tall and everything that I wished that I could marry when I was, single and dating and looking around and stuff. I was paralyzed when I was 22, so like right in the thick of the young single adult life. And it was hard. Dating in a wheelchair was like uber hard. And so, but I did it, and I found my wonderful husband, and he found me, and he married me in spite of my being in a wheelchair. And it was awesome. I met him in college, so I know that people are wondering, where did you meet your husband? I met him in college. And actually we met at like a church class, like a seminar, like an institute class. I don't remember what it was particularly on, but we met at an institute class, and we started, and that was when I could walk. And then we were not dating when I got paralyzed. We had broken up. So he was an ex-boyfriend, and then he had come back after I got paralyzed. He just showed up at the hospital, and after my boyfriend broke up with me and I was single for a little while, after I came home from the hospital, my ex-boyfriend and I got back together, and he was with me the first time I brushed my teeth by myself, and he was with me the first time I drove a car, and he says he was with me the last time I drove a car too. He's like, I'm driving from now on. He's just kidding, kind of. But, and then and he's got our kids, like, right, he gives me time to paint, because he knows that it feels good for me to paint, and it fills that void that dancing left. So he takes the kids. We have 4 beautiful kids, and he takes them out on a fun outing while I paint. So we have 3 beautiful girls and 1 handsome little boy. I was able to get pregnant 3 times, and I had 3 beautiful girls, and then we just barely adopted our little son just 4 months ago. Like, he was born in November, and we adopted him. And when I first got into the adoption process, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine a sweet little expectant mother looking to place her son for adoption, and then seeing me in my wheelchair with my hands, with my stomach poking out, with my, with all of my inadequacies and all of my flaws and everything that I thought was so imperfect about me, and then seeing like, oh yeah, that's the one. I'm gonna place my baby with that paralyzed woman. I had such a hard time even imagining any sweet little birth mother doing that, but there was a sweet little birth mother who did exactly that. And she saw me and said, yep, she's who I know is supposed to take this baby and raise him and love him as I would love him, and I do love him. And I'm so happy. I can't even imagine, like, it's just so awesome. I wish that I could have known how awesome my life was going to be when I was crying 20 years ago about how I thought my life was all over, how this was going to be so awful. But it has turned out not just as great as everyone else's, but it has turned out even better than I could have even imagined that it would be. So I am going to finish my painting, then I'm going to show you guys my beautiful piece of art, and I'll name it. We'll name this painting. It'll be named something awesome. Something amazing. Some amazing name that only this painting could have. There you have it. Here he is. I painted a turtle because the rock that I jumped off of is actually called Turtle Rock in St. George. And so I painted a turtle to celebrate the 20 years that I have been in a wheelchair after I landed at the bottom of Turtle Rock. I used 20 different colors. I learned lots of things in these 20 years. I'm sure it's more than 20, but I just picked 20 colors, and he looks pretty cute. So we'll call him Rolly, shall we? Rolly the turtle. So thanks so much for watching, and thanks for being here with me on my YouTube and relaxing with me as I use painting as, you know, one of my tools in my tool belt to help me maintain a happy life. And I hope you're having a happy life too, and we can all just keep on rolling, right? No matter what happens or doesn't happen or what we're doing or not doing. Okay, we'll see you next time.